Hello, it's me, Kevin Vonesper. I'm going a little casual today. I don't know which shirt this is. I think it's a new one. It's a new one. It's a new Gwar shirt. You know, I don't have enough Gwar shirts. You guys got to start sending me shirts to wear on this show. Otherwise, I'm just going to keep doing the tie thing. You know, keep it classy. Hello, everybody. Welcome to GWARPod. We got another Gym Times episode tonight. Chris Bopst from the Alternatives and founding member of GWAR. Hell yeah. That was just the Alternatives that we just watched as an intro. We're going to ask them all about that. But first, you know, I usually do GWAR news later, but I can't wait because it's relevant to the show. I got a new product that I gotta try tonight. This is a little bit of an unboxing. Gwar Smash. Dude. Arctic cocktail. Can you believe it? They sent me alcohol in the mail. Thanks, Gwar. Not directly, but you know. Can you believe that? I'm going to have to try one tonight on the show. Has anybody tried one of these yet? Arctic Smash. What do I have to do? I have to, it says, turn it upside down for 10 seconds because it's real fruit juice. We're going to try it. It's hard to read upside down, but this is from Devil's Backbone Distilling Company. 7.5% alcohol. So anyone else drinking tonight? Anyone drinking, smoking? Drop it in the comments. Let's take a taste. Instant death. I'm gonna die. It's pretty good, actually. I can taste that real fruit. Are you guys ready? You guys help me. If you guys are interested, drop your comments, drop your questions. You know, we're gonna have a good time tonight on the GWARPod.
GWARPod comes from on GWARPod. 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 GWARPod.
Hello, Chris.
Hello. How are you doing tonight?
Have you ever had Gwar alcohol?
Well, it's a funny story. When they were making that, they got all past and present members together, and we beat off into a vat of alcohol, and that's what you're tasting right now. That's where it gets that fruity flavor.
Oh, yeah. I can taste you specifically.
Blood, tears, and semen. That's
Well,
what
I see
Gwar
we're
is all
off to a
about.
great start. Yeah. It's where do we start? Should we start with what we just watched? What do you remember about that? That was about 1990, right?
Yeah, that was towards the end of the alternatives. We had about another 2 years or so. But that's at DC Space. We had played there a couple, many times over the years.
Kind of a famous space, right?
Oh yeah, it was pivotal to DC in the 80s, and right across the street was the Landsberg Community Center, which most people kind of remember from the Trouble Funk Big Boys Minor Threat show. I guess that was 83. But and then it was walking distance from the old 930 Club. So
yeah, man, I've never been to any of the 930 clubs. I really got to get up on my DC punk game.
They just opened the Atlantis now. I saw some. They totally recreated the original 930, and the Foo Fighters played. And the first song they did was at the Atlantis, which is you can hear it on the Bad Brains Black Dot CD.
Oh, but, yeah. Bad Brains.
It's pretty funny that
Bad Brains back then.
Oh, yeah. To this day, the best rock band I've ever seen live, by far. No one even comes close.
I can say that I saw Bad Brains at CBGB's.
Oh,
not
nice.
In the 80s. It was like the last week CBGB's was open, and we just showed up and they let us in. But hey, it's cool to say. It was probably cooler to say than to actually see, because it's not exactly they're not exactly the same people they were 30 years before, but
the band is still slamming. It's Joseph is not what he was, but
HR
at his peak he was unstoppable.
Oh yeah, incredible.
I got
to meet him though.
Yeah,
he's a really nice. I filmed an interview with him. Very, very nice person. Very, very soft spoken. Very, very interesting. But everyone always has lots of love to spread around that HR guy. So
he actually did a scream on the Alternatives record Buzz.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh well, let's get into it. I got my props here.
Which is funny.
This is actually the only one I own, but is
that's
he
a good
credited
one
on here?
Yeah, it screams. You'll probably hear that.
It's really hard to read the lettering on here.
Oh yeah, that was a painting.
Okay, yeah. I just so everyone can reference, like, this is what I'm trying to read here. It's near impossible, but I believe you.
Yeah,
That's
I
awesome.
met him. I met him in DC with the band HR, and I would roadie up to the Rat one time for HR. So we were familiar with him, and then the Alternatives played with HR a bunch. And he was in Richmond a lot. So we were like, yeah, well, hey, he said he played trumpet. So we were like, hey, well, come on down and, play trumpet on a track. The one being Black Hole on Buzz, the one you have. And he came down to the studio and basically just for a couple of hours smoked a heroic amount of weed. And while we were like, okay, man,
speaking of,
you're going to lay down some trumpet for us. And so we finally whipped out the trumpet, and within like 2 seconds, we're like, oh, no, that's not going to work. So we're like, yeah, just go ahead and ad lib, and he was just ad libbing. And right before the break, he does that thing, wow, that famous HR scream. And that was the only thing we kept. So he, for that scream, he got like 2 ounces of probably the best marijuana the guitar player had ever grown. Nice. But we go along with him, and the Natives played with HR a bunch when his band was Follow for Now, and when he had the DC band with David Byers and Kenny Dredd and Earl. So one of my favorite memories is playing football with them, Earl and I on the same football team. So yeah,
did you win?
We spent yeah, well, that game we played in front of the Virginia Museum, and it went down to 1 point. We were playing, every touchdown was 1 point. It was like we were playing to 10, and it was 9-10, and 2 people went to the hospital during that game. We were in our early 20s, but there were 2 broken ankles. But they won. I was a quarterback. I'd throw the ball, and I'd let go of it. Okay, is he going to catch it? Then boom, just get hit, slaughtered. So, yeah, that was probably the last football game I ever played in.
And the first one, no. That's cool. Yeah, when did the Alternatives start exactly? And how far exactly is DC from Richmond?
90 miles.
Okay, but so pretty close.
Yeah, it's under the right circumstances, less than 90 minutes.
Right.
Under the worst circumstances, it can be 10 hours. That stretch of 95 is thoroughly awful. But, the Natives, we're all Northern Virginia refugees. The guitar player is from Reston, Greg Ottinger, and Jim Thompson's from Front Royal.
Jim Thompson coming on the show in a couple of weeks. Stay tuned.
Yeah.
Plug.
He's still booking shows. He booked Baba Kamadan, an African group that just played here in Richmond. He has his own record label called Electric Cowbell. He's been playing music. Yeah.
Yeah, his discography is quite large, actually.
Oh, yeah. Large and varied. Black and huge.
I've been catching up. I try to, if you see my Gwar collection, my Gwar cave here includes lots of side projects, and I try to collect them all. It's pretty hard because of the amount of volume involved, but
oh no, and they keep making more stuff for you to buy.
I know. I have to have a, I don't know what you would call it, but it's kind of like the proximity of how long you were in the band and how close you were to the time in the band compared to the release that I'm buying. But now that I'm talking to people, I'm like, well, I got to catch up. Holy shit. Buzz is not going to cut it. I need to go get Tulsa Drone or whatever it's called now.
Oh, yeah. That was another Richmond band. Gwar adjacent because of Jim.
Wait,
but
were they around back then too?
No, but Richmond
Yeah.
was fairly incestuous at that point.
Oh yeah,
And
no kidding. I've
there
seen that
wasn't a
Gwar
whole.
family tree.
Oh yeah. Well, everybody at some point ended up in Gwar.
Right, exactly.
because of this is a funny story. My mother came down to
She
visit
joined
me.
Gwar?
She appreciated it. My mother was an artist and appreciated it, but she came down to the dairy one time, and that was when the natives were going and Gwar was still going. I'm showing her all the stuff, and she's just looking around. And as we're leaving, she says, "Chris, you're gonna have to quit the band." I was like, "Why is that?" She said, "Because it's going to kill people."
What?
And I was like, "Oh, okay, well." And she was partially right.
Yeah.
But
sure.
yeah, she was amazed at just the amount of work that went into it for virtually no financial reward whatsoever.
Right. Well, now we're drinking Gwar beer, so who's laughing,
Oh, I know.
I don't
Hey,
know if they're getting rich off of it, but
no.
did you?
Oh no, I'm not.
Yeah. Did you live in the dairy?
I did for a little while. That's what bonded everything together, pretty much. Because I joined Death Piggy when Dave.
Yes, you
there was a
mentioned that. I
period.
can't wait to hear this story. Yeah.
There was a period in DC hardcore where everybody added a second guitarist. Minor Threat, Faith. It was a thing, and of course, Dave decided he should play guitar, and so they asked me to play bass, and I was like, "Yeah, I'll play bass with Death Piggy, who I love." But the one thing that came of that was that the band was perfect as a three-piece with just Russ, Sean, and Dave. But more importantly, Dave should never, ever play guitar. Dave was a horrible, horrible guitar player. And if he were alive, he would surely agree. But we probably did about 10 shows like that with the four-piece Death Piggy. I didn't play on any of the records, sadly, but it was not it was at the end of Death Piggy is when I joined the band, so it wasn't I was the last bit of that hope. And then they got Steve Douglas, but that was a different beast. And that also came through Gwar as well. But
and at one point, I think Russ and him were in the band together too.
Well, for a very brief moment, when Russ was out the door and Steve was coming in, and it was Sean and Dave and I playing together. And then Dave played guitar, and then Ben was singing. Ben Hubax, who was a great singer, but
wait, in Death Piggy?
Oh no, when Gwar started.
This was Gwar. Yeah, okay. Yeah, we're skipping ahead to Gwar. I was going to say, yeah.
And Ben was singing, but as with anything with Dave, it's only a matter of time before he takes over. So, and then Ben, I knew his heart wasn't in it, and then Dave took over, mercifully lead vocals, because that's what he was best at, and that's how it all kind of came together.
So were you in Death Piggy when they played the first Gwar shows?
Oh yeah, I think I brought that up actually. The first show, if I remember this correctly,
Suicidal Tendencies. Is that the one?
Yeah, what was it? I have it here actually. Oh, it's I
got
Thursday,
my trusty book. Let's check it out.
Yeah, Thursday, March 28th. And that was quite a memorable evening. And we were booked as Death Piggy, but our our plan was to play as Death Piggy, a hardcore band that we called the Nazi Killers, and
Right.
GWAR.
I have questions about that too.
Mhm. The Nazi Killers
March 28th. Yes.
was our mockery of DC hardcore, which was like 1, 2, 3, 4, no, kill fascism, fascism sucks. Just basically throwing together songs.
Who was in
at
that
breakneck
band?
speed. Well, it was everybody that was in Death Piggy at that point, which was
Okay.
Sean, Dave, me, and Russ. And so we left stage, went and put on our GWAR outfits. Well, this was hilarious because I didn't have a bass rig. And so I only had a bass. And it was my understanding that we were cool to use Suicidal Tendencies bass rig. So I was like, yeah, cool. Yeah, it's fine. So I'm playing through it, through all the stuff. I don't think anything of it. And then after the show, I'm down in the dressing room, and I am suddenly surrounded by Suicidal Tendencies people ready to kill me. And I'm like, oh man, hey, I had no idea, what they told me it was cool. I didn't mean any harm. And they obviously saw that I was just an idiot and let me go. And we're actually pretty cool about it. They thought GWAR was very funny.
I could see them being very intimidating.
Well, there was probably 6 or 7 of them surrounding me, and I get it, like, who is this asshole using our bass rig, and they're coming from California. If something went wrong, they would be screwed. So, but they were very cool about it. And again, liked the performance. As I was talking my way out of getting my ass kicked, Dave was getting screamed at by the bouncer at the 930 Club, because before we left Richmond, we found a hobby horse, one of those old hobby horses, and Scott Craw was like, oh man, we should sacrifice it, oh, cool, killer. So we filled the thing up with Cara syrup and put paper mache underneath of it to seal all the Cara syrup, which was literally Cara syrup with red food dye, like the stickiest, most awful substance in the world. So we didn't even think about it. I remember putting it in the van and being like, man, that thing's pretty heavy. So, I didn't think anything of it, so we're going up, and we come to the point where we're sacrificing the horse, and Dave cuts the underbelly of this horse, and copious amounts of Cara syrup come out and go straight into the 2 front monitors at 930 Club, which instantaneously go out. And oh man, they were going to kill Dave. I forget the bouncer's name, but he was all over Dave, and a couple other guys from 930 were ready to kill him. And so they told us that GWAR would never ever play there again. And I think it was probably after the second GWAR record. It was a couple of years before they would even allow GWAR to even be considered to play at 930, even though we were, apologized profusely. But we had ruined 2 monitors that were worth a couple $1,000.
Right. Didn't they have to do I thought there was another story attached to that where they had to make it up in some way, like by playing another show, or
I'm not well, if it did, maybe later, because maybe the Wuss gig, I know there was a Wuss gig that they played with all later, and there was, it followed them around for a while, and because of that gig, that people were very hesitant to let GWAR do anything, because we didn't even think about, no, maybe we should cover these monitors up,
Well, it was the first time.
Well, I mean, what I don't know what we were thinking. I mean, there was
Yeah.
probably 2-3 gallons of Karo syrup, which is the worst substance known to man, in this thing, and we just didn't even think about it. I mean, that's what was our best defense was ignorance. Was it was obvious that it wasn't malice. We were just idiots. So,
Mhm.
but I'll never forget Dave being screamed at. Probably one of the only times I ever saw him even vaguely remorseful. But it was infamous. I mean, people
Yeah.
talk about that show still, and it was fun.
It's a stain on the suicidal tendencies legacy. No.
Well, no, they were actually very cool.
No,
I
just
mean, we
kidding.
were
Yeah.
we
They're
were
doing
scared of them.
fine. I
Oh
believe
no!
what's his name's in the band now? Who's the drummer? He's
Oh,
in
the
every band.
drummer. Is it the
Yeah.
drummer from Slayer?
Yeah, yeah.
Dave Lombardo.
Lombardo,
Yeah,
yeah. He's doing
such a
good.
great drummer.
Oh yeah. I saw him play with the Misfits a couple of years ago.
I remember I saw the Misfits.
Yeah. Back in the day.
Yeah, and I didn't
Tell
like
me about that.
I didn't like it. I thought they
Oh
were
yeah,
just kind of.
they were a terrible band. I mean,
I
I
thought,
love the Misfits, but they were not a good band.
yeah, I didn't think they were very good. And I
The
thought they
songs
were
were great.
kind of weak. I don't know. I liked the DC bands at that time. I think my favorite, and Dave and I kind of bonded on this. Our favorite hardcore band was Void. There was a glorious period right around the Faith Void split that I mean, they were. I saw them probably six times, and I will say, of those 6 times, 2 times they were transcendental, like the best band, easily in the top 10 performances I've ever seen, and then the other 4, like the worst band I've ever seen. Like they were horrible. Like they couldn't get anything right. But that's what kind of made them is like you never really knew what they were going to do. And when they were on, man, they were blistering and kind of summed up that kind of suburban dissonance, aggro that we were all feeling at that time. The generation that Dave and I and the initial generation of GWAR kind of came up in, which was hardcore, Mad Magazine,
Right.
porno,
Yeah.
skateboarding, and we all had Kiss hangovers. I mean, I think all of us, in some form or fashion, were in the Kiss army. And so, yeah, but hardcore was definitely what bonded that together.
Well, speaking of hardcore, yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
What the night that we the kind of crystallized in our head, Hunter is the one that came up with GWAR, the concept, the movie, and the base characters. But the idea behind GWAR started at this on Halloween night. It was a heaven, hell, and purgatory party, and it was probably 4 a.m, and we were watching MTV, and Bon Jovi came on with "You Give Love a Bad Name," and we got
New Jersey.
upset. We became obsessed with the idea that people don't want good; they want bad, and we started writing "Rock and Roll Party Town" that night. As just like what's the dumbest thing we can think of? Yeah,
because Ben had a story about Rock and Roll Party Town on the last episode.
Yeah.
So it must have been within those like same few days.
Oh yeah, you're right. I mean, we were that whole time. That fall of '85 was a pivotal. Fall of '84 into '85 was a pivotal time. And that's when we all met each other, and that's when we all started hanging out at the dairy. That's when we met Hunter. That's when we started playing. That's when I joined Death Piggy, and that's when the germ of GWAR kicked in. And that Rock and Roll Party Town
started it all, huh?
That to me is that was the beginning of the big dum dum. And then the whole goal, at least initially, was to not be good. Like
Right.
my goal a lot of times is like, I don't want to touch the fretboard. And
right.
so, yeah, none of us were metalheads. I mean, at that time, you have to think it was pre-Slayer, Metallica, Exodus, you know, all the kind of post-hardcore metal or new age of metal. You know, you were dealing with Bon Jovi and fucking Winger and Rat. You know, it was horrible. You know, it had nothing to do with it. And we were all, you know, hardcore guys. So it was very easy to make fun of heavy metal. So we had a glorious
That's the
time.
Gwar I love the most. Like the punk rock band pretending to be a metal band. That's like what
Oh,
Gwar
no, yeah. And
is
I used to say this to Dave. There's a Clash song called Death or Glory. But the lyric I used to say, and the lyric goes, every gimmick hungry yob digging gold from rock and roll grabs the mic to tell us he'll die before he's sold. But I believe in this. It's been tested by research. He who fucks nuns later joins the church.
Join the church. Yeah. That's the line I was gonna come up with.
So yeah, we would I would say that to Dave over the years. I was like, you're king idiot now, Dave. Everything you've aspired to be. So but yeah, it was glorious. You know, I mean, from day one, you know, it was pretty much a packed house for Gwar.
Right. Yeah.
You know, from the first.
What do you remember about what else do you remember about like the period between the genesis of the idea and the first show, like the development? Was there any character development? You were talking before about trying to shoot the movie. Like, what do you remember about that?
Well, it was all fairly chaotic. I mean, we all were in the dairy in various rooms in different parts of the building, and we all kind of came together. We became aware of Hunter and Chuck and Mike and Don Drakovich. They were all in the building, and we all just it all became kind of like an incestuous mix. And we decided, it just kind of came together organically, like, okay, we want to help each other. And there were people that were we were all in art school, so there were artists, and then there were musicians, and then the musicians were artists, and artists were musicians. So it all kind of came together. Hunter had the base costumes ready for the movie, and so we came up with the music. The first songs, Gore Gore and Rock and Roll Party Town, Slutman City, As Pure as Arctic Snow, American Eyes.
Pretty much the stuff on this CD, right?
Oh yeah, definitely, yeah.
Yeah,
and that's
I was listening to some of those weird songs like the Eat Steel and Gore, different version of Gore Gore on here.
Yeah, well, that one's got I think that's Steve Douglas, me, Sean Sumner as the band, and Joey Slutman on vocals. So the first 4 songs on that. And then the next session is the alternatives. Basically, everybody fell away. Sean, you know, went and played with other bands. Then Steve left. He came back later.
Right.
But basically, everyone left. Oh, yeah, he came back. But yeah, basically, the original band, Sean and Russ, left. And so I was like, well, the rest of the alternatives had formed during that time. And I just said, Dave, you know, let's just get, you know, Jim and Greg to play. It's we in the same practice space. It was so easy. And so we just taught them the songs, and then we wrote Time for Death. And,
I was going to ask, what songs did you guys like contribute? Because I know Hello was kind of an amalgamation of the first couple of years.
Yeah. I mean, basically everything on that first album, except for maybe a couple of tunes, was written, you know, by Dave and I and Russ, pretty much. And, you know, You Ain't Shit is basically a put down on the alternatives, you know.
Oh, yeah.
And we had which we loved. But yeah, we don't need no shit blowing sax get out the fuck out of my face because tonight there's meat on the menu. Because Jim Thompson is a vegetarian. So the Joey.
That's what I'll have to ask him.
Oh yeah, Joey was like, "Oh, fuck you guys." And we had alternatives had a sax player, Eric Unger,
right,
who we love, but he was definitely a divisive character, and he played this kind of frantic alto saxophone that, oh my God, would just piss people off to no end, which I loved because of it. And I loved him as a character too. But,
yeah, and if y'all want to hear it, go check out the Bandcamp, right?
Oh yeah, well that's the original alternatives there. That's the first tape, and then the first album on SST. The first tape is very funny. It's much slower compared to the SST album.
Right.
And it was funny because our last show as GWAR, we had totally pre-recorded. And
wait, what? Do tell. I haven't heard this story before.
Well, it was right at the end of filming, and we needed to have a good soundtrack, video footage of us.
Was that the Going Bananas or PB Kelly's?
No, this was actually at Rockets.
Oh, okay.
So
this was even after these.
Oh yeah, after all those, somewhere in there. Halloween 86. It was probably 87. You're right there.
Mm-hmm.
And so we pre-recorded everything, which is what that CD you have without the vocals.
Okay.
So yeah, we did that, and probably easily, if it's true that when you die, points of your life flash before your eyes, this will definitely be in it. But prior to the show, we used to go and steal fire extinguishers wherever we could for creating blood power. So I went to a place on Northside and found this gigantic fire extinguisher, probably the biggest one we had ever stolen before. It was 40 gallons or something, an incredible amount of fluid, which we proceeded to fill up with fake blood. We spent an inordinate amount of time working on the mixture to make it look like bloody semen, like having arguments like, would there be more brown in it? No, it needs more red. Didn't matter anyway. So I had this thing hooked up to my huge phallus. And again, everything's pre-recorded. So I'm playing the bass like this with my hands in the air. And I would deliberately put my hands in the air when there was a solo bass run, thinking that it would be painfully obvious that this was pre-recorded. Of course, no one really knew. But so right when it's my time to spray the viscous fluid out of my gigantic enlarged penis, I motion to Scott Crawl. Okay, man, let's go. He gives it full blast, and literally I have probably a 4 foot phallus in front of me that immediately becomes erect through the sheer force of the fluid being forced through it. And people are literally maybe a foot, 18 inches from this stream, and it was hitting people with like a gusher strength right in the face. And I was like, whoa, right in the face. And it was, probably 40, 50 gallons of fluid coming at him really, really fast. And that image is definitely in my head forever, just like, people recoiling in fear.
That is a story I've never heard before. I mean, that must have sounded terrible. I mean, that CD doesn't sound very good. I can imagine that blasting through a big PA system just sounding. Wait, was that when you had 2 drummers too?
During that show, I think it was just the natives. I'm pretty sure for that show, and everything was pre-recorded. And again, that CD, the second half is mastered all fucked up. Like it's mastered horrible. The original tape sounds great. Like the songs that I put on my YouTube page are
I was
from the
gonna ask
original
you about
master
that.
tapes
Yeah.
of that. Like that CD sounds so horrible. And of course, they just put that together quickly. But I have the original, at least the 2-track master of that. So
I did want to bring that up. I wanted to ask you
I know,
about
yeah.
these things you have. Can we play one? Let's pick
Sure.
one. What song do you
I
want?
like the Time for Death. I like
Time for Death.
because it's got the TV show too.
Last week, West Broad
Oh,
Street
yeah.
has been besieged.
Yeah, were you there for that? Was that fun?
Oh no, yeah. That's all of us. There I am. Jaws of Death. And my Bonner.
Yeah, Bonner. I want him on the show. Him and Scott Crawl. They're top of my list. If anyone can get them for me.
There's Colette.
Yeah. Dave.
Oh, Dave.
They called you Gwar, right?
Oh no, yeah. And this was all supposed to be in the movie. There's
Right.
Greg. Here I come up with the Jaws of Death, freezing. I can't tell you how cold it was there. And that was awesome because we demanded to be put on TV. We basically just walked into the TV studio, walked past the receptionist, and told them, put us on TV. And they did. They immediately got a camera and we were on TV. It was a great life lesson. So just walk in and demand something. And that's from
That's Schaefer Court, right?
Yeah, that was the big Schaefer Court gig.
Right. I definitely want to talk about that because that's like such a landmark in Gwar's early history.
That was probably the first, when it became kind of serious.
Right.
And then
exactly.
And then I kind of edited all these clips together, making all that. Took along. That's the original Sin. Oh, yeah. All the good stuff.
So wait, I got questions. You have the original master tape of this like recording session?
I have the original cassette. Yeah.
Because
I don't know
if it's, if it can sound better, they should probably put this out again. I can't believe it, but this CD came out almost 20 years ago.
I know. It's hilarious. Yeah.
It's time.
The first part of it sounds good. I like the first 4 songs. They're pretty funny.
Oh, the last. Oh, it's almost unlistenable.
Oh no, yeah. Ah, yeah. That engine came down. I can't believe no one didn't die,
dude. So, I have questions. The Schaefer Court show. Does this mean you have a video of the Schaefer Court show?
I don't know whose footage that is.
Because I want to see the Schaefer Court show. Like, release the Schaefer Court show.
Oh, they will eventually. I'm sure they will.
I hope so. But yeah, what do you remember about the Schaefer Court show? Because that's definitely like something I have a big interest in. Every time I ask someone about it, I hear like a new detail that I've never heard before.
That went into it.
Right.
Well, I mean, it was the first kind of serious, big time production that we all worked on. Like there was a script and, what props needed to be made, and people were put on specific duty. And it went on. I mean, it was probably a good 6 weeks building all that, the raid can, Gore, all the different costumes, that syringe. I mean, it was a huge orchestration that never would have happened if it were not for the dairy.
Of course, yeah.
And really the dairy was only probably, it was within a mile of Schaefer Court where that show took place.
Incredible.
Yeah, and that engine, it's a miracle that someone didn't die because we strung that thing up.
I hear that a lot.
Well, we were all kind of worried about it because there were so many people, and it was, a loose conglomeration of people, and there was a loose idea. But once you hit the stage, a lot of times things change. the best laid plans.
Right.
And then this thing weighed, I mean, probably weighed 150 pounds, and it went from the 3 or 4 stories up, and that thing came down and annihilated Nobby, which I couldn't believe, and it worked perfectly. And that was a true it was a miracle that happened as well as it did. And then
I heard there was a character called the Watcher who just sat there and watched the show. Is that true?
Oh no, yeah. I mean, it got to the point where, I mean, it was such a huge orchestration. I mean, there was probably 30 people involved with the entire production. So, and then people, cool. There were, the terrorists that came on stage and, pulling stuff off. I mean, it's still an organizational nightmare.
I'm just going to start playing this. I know there's a video with some footage from it here somewhere. There's the news broadcast again.
Yeah, there. That's me with the balls of death. Oh yeah, that's all shot on film too.
Right, you were talking about that before, like how it's difficult to shoot on film. Like how much of the movie do you think actually got shot? And do you remember there being a script or anything like that?
There was a loose script, but it was shot. I mean, it was shot on film. I forget his name; it's escaping me now. But it cost so much money to get not only the film, but then to get it developed and then edited and then sync it up with sound. It was such a long process to get that.
There it is.
Oh, there it is. Oh, boom!
See, the footage exists. I'm looking at it, but like, put it out there, man. I want to see it all.
I'm sure Bob Gorman would know of anybody.
Oh yeah, I'm gonna grill him on that the second he gets on this show.
Oh no, he's the official documentarian of the group, and that's why I was the Jaws of Death because I moved my head around so I could get the jaws actually moving.
So you were the first Jaws of Death. Were you BalSac the Jaws of Death, or were you just BalSac, or were you just the Jaws of Death?
Well, initially Steve Johnson wore it, and then he left. Then I wore it because I could get the jaws moving.
Johnson, who's that?
Steve Douglas. I'm sorry, Steve.
Okay,
Douglas.
I was gonna say that's a name I hadn't heard. Okay, yeah.
Steve Johnson was
the first.
He was the first to actually wear that, but he wasn't BalSac. I became BalSac, christened by Dave.
Okay, tell me about that.
Well, we just had shitty
right
names
there.
for us. Yeah,
that's where I got that picture on the flyer right there.
Oh no, yeah, and then on the top of that, these were held together with screws, and so they were definitely the screws were digging into my temple. So after each show that I played, this show in particular, blood was just dripping down. Like I had two holes from the screws. We weren't very good with comfort. Right. Excuse me. But yeah, so I had blood racing down my head during this.
Wow.
But yeah, that was the full-fledged GWAR. Ron Curry's playing, Tim Harris is playing. We were all
Tim Harris was part of this show too?
I remember he was the other guitar player. He was in Milk too.
Well, I was going to say, go ahead. Yeah, tell me about Milk, because was that
Milk was Jim Thompson,
right?
Yeah, that was all the same time. Tim Harris, Matt Linkus, who is the brother of Mark Linkus from Sparkle Horse, Colette and Dave, and Ron Curry. And I wish that tape existed because they had some great songs.
Does it not
but
exist? Someone's got to have it, right?
I've heard there's recordings floating around, but I've never heard it, which is sad because they did have some great songs. Oh, the Terrace.
We're gonna find it. Anyone, guys, who's got the lead on the Milk tape?
Yes, please.
I think Colette talked about it. I gotta go review that.
Yeah, I think that's Tim Harris behind me. Yeah.
Okay.
There you go.
Speaking of Tim Harris, I think I'm thinking of the right person. You were in Capone for a minute.
No, Mike Bishop and Tim Harris and Seth Harris. No relation. Started Capone in the night after Bishop quit GWAR.
Mm-hmm.
And he's a great guitar player. I mean, he's.
Oh wait, were you not? Am I getting that confused with somebody else? Let me look at my trusty.
Oh, this is much later. Yeah, this is.
Milk.
Yeah, there you go.
Capone.
Oh yeah, look at that.
None two. God, it's so complicated.
Oh no, yeah.
I gotta find it in the book. Well, you weren't in Capone?
No, I wasn't.
Okay. I'm thinking of somebody.
Oh, good. They did. I'm glad they put Chris Bopst in Death Piggy. I'm always like, I was in Death Piggy.
Yeah.
Hey.
So you were in Death Piggy, yeah.
Not the great Death Piggy. Again, the only.
Whatever.
I mean, Steve Douglas, the single he did with Death Piggy is great. I love those songs, but to me, it's Sean, Dave, and Russ. And I knew Sean up in Northern Virginia, so I had a close tie with him. I mean, he's been dead. He's been dead for 30 years now.
Yeah, wow.
Sad.
R.I.P. Didn't he help produce one of your records?
The first tape he helped us out, because he hooked us up with Radioactive Studio. That's also where the Natives recorded the GWAR, our GWAR tunes with them. And I would love to get that tape. I know it exists somewhere at the Raw Tracks because it is a good tape, despite what that single says.
Tracks?
Yeah, but yeah, because Greg is a great guitar player, and not in a traditional metal guitar player sound. He kind of reminded me of Bob Mould, the kind of sonic guitar player. And the version
were pretty weird. You guys were
the songs, Time for Death. That in particular, I think is probably the best version we came up with.
Yeah, I like the slow, grindy version of that. It's
no, silly. Yeah, it's probably the first actual metal song that we ever kind of came up with, and that was for a second. John Cobbett from DC joined GWAR for about 10 minutes, and he was instrumental.
What was he from?
He played in Malefice, which was a DC metal crossover band, and probably they started in '83 and ran until about middle of '85. Look them up, Malefice. They were ahead of their time. But he was in Richmond and in GWAR. He never played a show, but he practiced with us a couple times. And
did he have a character? That's the big question.
No. I think he was embarrassed, because there was. I mean, I think we were all kind of guilty, of it too. Like, we're trying to be serious about our band, and GWAR is not serious. So, and I think that kind of filtered in and with a lot of people initially, but. He, in particular, was not very much into the humor aspect of it as much as the rest of us. I think he wanted to be serious. I think maybe he was, and I'm not kidding when I say maybe 2 practices or something. But that was the first time that we actually kind of, okay, let's try to write a metal song.
That's funny. Wow, where do we go from here? Let me skip back to alternatives for a minute. You were on SST Records.
Yeah.
So that's like, there's nothing more punk rock than that. Tell me a little bit about that experience.
at that time, because
I mean, Black Flag, you know.
Oh no, yeah, that was such a huge influence on all of us. And I had given Greg Ginn a tape of the alternatives. I gave him Friends of the Farm when Black Flag did their last tour with Gone and Painted Willie. I ended up talking to him for a long time, and I didn't think anything of it. And then a couple of months later, we're opening up for Sonic Youth. And I'm talking to Kim and
Thurston.
Kim and Thurston. And Kim was wearing a Peter Criss solo album T-shirt. And so I was like, oh, I had to talk to her at length about how awful that record is. And she's like, oh, you guys are recording for SST. And I was like, what? You know, and I just kind of let it go. And then I was like, oh, what is she talking about? So I called Chuck Dukowski out at SST, and I said, first thing I said to him was, when's Saccharine Trust going on tour? And he was like, who is this and where are you calling from? I was like, oh, you know, Chris Bopst, Richmond, Virginia. I play with a band called Alternatives. And he's like, oh, yeah, you guys want to record for SST? And we're like, yes, we do. And then he's like, do you know the guys in Always August, which was, you know, friends of ours, and they were basically, you know, a hippie jam band. And they were like, yeah, we want to sign them too. So I told them, I remember got off the phone, I went and told Tim and Lee, I was like, you know, SST wants to put your record out, and they couldn't believe it. They thought I was crazy. So that sent the germ, you know, so we were like, well, fuck, we're going to record for SST. And at that point, GWAR was taking up more and more of our time. And, you know, at that point, there were 20 people plus people in GWAR.
Like, they won't miss us, right?
Well, it just became like, it was so much bigger than just, it was so much easier to be the Alternatives. It was like, hey, there's 4 of us.
Yeah.
Boom,
No
we're
costumes,
done.
no
you know,
blood.
Well, and then even at that point with GWAR, to play a show, even in town, was a 16-hour day. Okay, we'd have to pack everything up, load it up, get all our gear, move everything there. Then we'd have to move the PA in. So we'd move the PA in, run the door, set up the PA, get everything, get the band set to play. A lot of us, you know, a lot of times we'd be into opening bands. Then we'd have to put on the costumes, do the show, and then because of what the show was, no one would run us a PA unless we cleaned it up. So we'd play the show, you have to take off all the costumes, clean up, then we'd have to clean the club. I mean, mopping the club, cleaning cords, load the fucking PA into the truck, then load all of our shit back into our vehicles, drive to the dairy, unload that shit all the way up to the 3rd floor. So, you know,
and how much did you make?
Done until the sun came up.
Right.
That's what a GWAR show was. And most of the money, you know, we always, I mean, there was not a show that I played with GWAR that wasn't a sellout. I mean, we sold out. I mean, there weren't big places, but, you know, a couple hundred people. And we were charging $5, but, you know, it was a nice chunk of change. But, you know, it went right back into the beast, you know, and it was a heroic amount of work. So, you know, and then there was all types of egos going on then, you know, and
you don't say.
Well, I've got my own ego, you know, and the problem was with Dave, I love Dave, love being around him and working with him, but it was Dave's show and you were, you know, you were a supporting cast, which is fine. But, you know, I was not content to be Dave's supporting cast, you know, and we had this opportunity to record with our heroes pretty much. You know, I would say it would be like, you know, a metal band and Jimmy Page comes to you and said, hey, do you want to record for Swan Song? That's what it was like to hear Greg Ginn say, hey, you want to record for SST, you know? So that show, the last show we did with as GWAR the next day we drove to Venice Beach, California, and recorded with Ethan James and recorded "Hold Your Tongue."
Wow.
And
Get it on the Bandcamp.
Yeah, on a shoestring budget, and we slept. That was a whole nightmare unto itself. It was funny. Dave wrote about it in for RVA News. Me and Gwar and the On Wrestling Flow of Death, which I had for years. I was like, Dave, you've got to write this down. It's like you've got to start. This is probably, man, 12, 15 years ago. But I was like, Dave, you've got to write this down because, you're going to forget it or you're going to die. I said, you're going to die and no one's going to know. So he did write it down, but what I remember is because he had painted this tortured face on the back of our van on the tire cover. And he was saying how we're driving off to go record with SST, and he's watching his drawing drive away from his painting, drive away from him and mocking his existence, because then he had to replace the whole band, and it was just so much easier to be in the alternatives, even though it was, had zero commercial potential. I mean,
I was going to say, how much actual success did that band achieve?
Well, I mean,
you did tour
we toured, toured the States 4 times, went to Europe twice, played Canada. We played every state except for Alaska and Hawaii. Some shows we were spit on, and it was ugly. Others, sometimes they loved us. I mean, we're not an easy band, but
no,
I
really
loved
punk
it.
Rock. Not,
well,
not
to me, it was rock. Punk rock. I didn't want to be.
It is punk rock, but it doesn't sound like punk rock.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there was a kind of period. I mean, for me, hardcore kind of died in like '83 in terms of being, kind of this new movement, and then it became like a set of rules, like anything else. And I wasn't into spiking my hair and listening to GBH or I'm not going to fly that fucking flag. I'm going to be my favorite punk rocker is me, Chris Bopst. I didn't I love Joe Strummer, D Boone, Greg Ginn, but I didn't want to be them. I wanted to be me. Whatever that tend to be. And I never wanted music to. I didn't expect it to pay my bills. I did it because I liked it and I loved it. So, and that was the sole motivation. The first tour that we did, national tour, was with COC on the Technocracy tour.
That's funny. I just saw them with Gwar.
Oh yeah. I mean, people are always like, you guys were in Gwar. They always wanted to talk to us about Gwar. We're like, yeah. I mean, that's just kind of silly. But, we played with them, and fuck, man, those people hated us. Oh my god! Every once in a while, we would hit a crowd that people liked us. There was always people that some of us liked us, but the pinnacle, we played at Fender's Ballroom with Technocracy, era COC, SNFU, Blast. It was like a huge hardcore mayhem. There's probably 3,500 people there. A huge amount. And of course, we go on second, and oh my god, it was a hailstorm of spit. I mean, it was just. And in that moment, I kind of I just moved right into front of the stage and was like, "Come on, I'll take every one of you fuckers on. Just don't get on the stage." And I was covered in spit, just totally covered in spit. And our sax player couldn't move because he's playing into the microphone. And I mean, his hat was covered in, we had spit coming all off of us. And so after our set, I was kind of, it empowered me. I will say from that night, kind of, fueled me for the next 6 years. I mean, throughout the duration of the alternatives. And we, was wildly more successful than I ever thought possible. I mean, we, played all over Europe. We played all over the States, Canada. So, it was a great experience for me, and I will never, I never regretted leaving GWAR. It was just like, God damn, man.
Check that one off the list.
Well,
Did you regret leaving GWAR?
Well, no, because I knew how much work it was. And, as I used to say, Dave, I didn't want to be king of the idiots. I didn't care, And he was like, "You really don't care, do you?" And I mean, of course, everybody cares and wants to be on the cover of Rolling Stone magazine, but I didn't want to be Dave's sidekick, But we were great friends, and throughout all the different incarnations of GWAR.
Yeah, did you follow their career after that?
Well, we were joined at the hip. We were always in the same practice space. We were, we grew up together. We were family, and they definitely helped us, took us on the road, Alternado's opening for GWAR. The people hated us, which we always thought was funny. But, the best thing I ever did for GWAR was I told Dave, I was like, you got to get this kid to play for you because he's great. And that kid was Mike Bishop. And at that point, he was living in Hopewell.
Teenager.
Yeah, he was still in high school.
But did you play with The Guilty?
No, we recorded The Guilty. Like Mike
recorded The Guilty. Cool.
Yeah, at Radioactive. I actually gave him the 2-inch or the 1/2-inch master that I had for whatever reason, just within the last year. And he was such a cool kid, and really enthusiastic. But more importantly, he was a great player in high school. Those little sausage fingers of his were rolling.
I mean, I've emulated my entire musical career off of him,
Oh no, I mean he's genuinely gifted musician, and so I always think that's the best thing I did for GWAR. But at the same time, it's probably the worst thing I ever did to Mike. But and then of course after, and then he left for a while and then came back. But after we left, they replaced us with basically people that thought we were a bunch of art school faggots, as what they would call us back in the day, which was Rob Mosby. Dewey's a sweet guy. Rob Mosby is a lughead monster. And then Steve Douglas, he was a nice guy, but they were all kind of like serious rock and roll guys. Whereas we were like art school pot smokers, and they were like heroin and crack, and they were like the real deal. And then we throw Mike into this, who was, they would pick him up in high school out at Hopewell. And but Mike is an incredibly talented musician, and so that
he's the sound of GWAR to me.
Oh well, yeah. I mean, he's replaced Dave as the kind of
But I mean, even his bass sound, like it didn't sound like GWAR to me after he left. I had to get used to that.
Oh yeah, he can't be emulated. No. I mean, why am I forgetting his name? The bass player now, who's a great bass player.
Yeah, but on the album,
Casey, it's Mike.
Mike. So the new album is like it's back to the GWAR that I remember. Basically.
Yeah, he's Mike. I feel sorry for anybody that has to follow him.
Sure.
Because you can't really.
Yeah.
So but we always remain close contact with them. And I hate, like, we were supposed to do a European tour with GWAR in the 90s, but then Desert Storm, it went from Desert Shield to Desert Storm. And we were going to do, at that point, probably another 8 weeks with GWAR in Europe. And we had been there for like 3 months already. But then Desert Storm, and they couldn't get the insurance and couldn't come over. I was so pissed off. Because, again, we were all good friends with everybody, on stage and behind stage. We all grew up in the Dairy. So, and, the Dairy, a lot of the GWAR
What was it like?
stuff.
Yeah, what was it like living in the dairy?
Well, well, it was an abandoned building. It was a milk production facility up
Right.
until I think the early part of the 20th century. And then an eccentric millionaire, so the story goes, took it over and had a proclivity for experimenting with electronics. So
Hmm.
by the time we got in there in the mid 80s, it was covered in dust and industrial packaging machines and all these control panels. So it looked like a horror film, pretty much like a low budget horror film, and it was
Perfect.
massive. So, and that's where I think Hunter came up with the idea because it was so much of what was around him. We were like in this wasteland,
Mhm.
within Richmond, Virginia, and then Richmond, Virginia at that point was, you know, it was empty except for Johns and gay prostitutes. I was like, I saw so many transvestite prostitutes in Richmond. I remember thinking, am I ever going to see a female walker?
Hmm.
Richmond always had this kind of strange, closeted gay community, which was always very funny to us because none of us cared. Dave's older brother was gay, and we it was funny. Liz used to joke like, "You're the only guys I know that wish they were gay and aren't," because we were always like,
Liz
"God, it
Fairbanks?
pisses off. Oh, it pisses off all the right people."
Well, I mean,
But
Odorous was a gay character.
oh well, yeah. I mean, it was, of course, it was the quickest way to unnerve people is to act gay at that time,
Mhm.
and so anyway, the dairy outside of it was filled with transvestite prostitutes, and we were in the dairy, the bottle on Marshall Street. It was Dave Brockie and I, Jim Diaz, which was in Derriere, Mike Bonner, and a couple other people. We're drinking beer, smoking weed in there, and there was a prostitute that used to work the street in front. And we're in there, and all of a sudden we hear this car, bang, boom, 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 boom. The 4 shots go off, and then we hear the tranny prostitute, I'm shot, help. I'm like, oh fuck, we're all like, because we're in the building illegally. I'm like,
Right.
oh my god, but just be quiet, So I'm
Oh
like, oh fuck,
no.
we can't have a dead transvestite prostitute outside of our building. We got to do something, man. So I was like, oh, okay, well. So nobody had a phone. So the only payphone was 2 blocks down the road out at Nick's Produce. So I take off and run down the street. Hey, there's a shooting on the corner of Marshall and Brook. There's a man down. And so I run back. And they're like, "What's your name?" I was like, "No name." Just left the phone off the hook and run back to the dairy. And so eventually the cops and the ambulance come, and the transvestite's like, thank you, kind sirs. And we're like, shut up, like
Wow.
hiding, because if they had caught us at that, they could have thrown us out. So we were like, oh man, just be quiet. But that was
They
like what was
survived. They
surrounding the dairy.
survived,
I
I hope.
remember.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember walking back one day to there, beautiful spring day, and I'm actually going to practice. Okay, and I'm walking the alley, taking the alley down. I look to my right, 6 eyes meet, and I look over, and there's a guy just going to town, like bam, boom, 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 as fast like a hummingbird into this dude's ass. Like, and I'm just like, oh my God, like, and start walking, and I get to it. I walk upstairs. I'm like, oh man, there's dudes fucking in the alley again. Look out, and they're still out there doing it. I was like, God damn, not even me walking by, like, stopped them. So, they were going full on for, a couple of minutes, beautiful daytime, springtime, Richmond, Virginia. And that kind of definitely informed, a certain sensibility in Gwar, just this kind of like crazy,
Wow.
covert sexuality that seemed to just permeate the city. Like, oh my God, Jesus. So, and then it was such an easy way to make people uncomfortable. Just even saying anything that wasn't heterosexual. And so Dave loved that, So
Sure.
we had
Yeah.
great fun playing with that. We'd hold hands and stuff on stage, all the gay stuff. And his brother was always behind it. He infused a lot of that humor in Dave. His brother dies of AIDS, and Dave writes a Milk song called "No More Homo Butt Chain," and that was his ode to his brother, which is one of the great Milk songs, which surely would get Dave would get canceled in a heartbeat now. But
someone find the Milk tape.
Oh my God, it was so great. But even the members of the band were always in debate about if they should play that or not. But in the DC scene, like I was so used to kind of like an open, no one really cared about gay, all the weirdos hung out together. It's like, we're all kind of weirdos, it doesn't matter, if I'm not fucking you or you're not fucking me, I don't care, So when we came to Richmond, it was like, well, I mean, it's just, who cares, So, but when we came to Richmond, it was definitely like, it's something to do with the Confederacy, and, it's this weird kind of, I don't know what it was, but it was a very closeted city, very, very closeted. And at that time, I had a friend at the friend of Gwar's, Ed Rackley, who was a member was going into the Peace Corps, and he had to do public service. And comes by, he's like, "Hey, I got to hand out condoms at the museum, Virginia Museum." I was like, "What are you talking about?" He's like, "Yeah, it's like a big cruising point." I'm like, "What are you talking about?" He's like, "Come with me." So I'll go up there. I'm like, okay, and they had these big boxwoods up there. And I'm like, "What are you talking about?" We're walking towards them. I get to about maybe 50 feet from them, still nothing. And then I get to 45 feet from them, and it's like something out of Caligula. There was like 50 guys in there going at it in various states of undress. I was like, oh my, and of course first they were like freaked out that we were cops, and we're like, "You're not cops," and we're just giving out condoms. They're like, "Oh, thank you," and run back into the bushes. So it was like the craziest shit I ever saw. And then right by, the public library downtown was a huge cruising joint for a long time, for many, many, many years. So, I mean, that was what Richmond was like at the time. And then all the crazy art school stuff. And you had to kind of make your own entertainment. And we were really good at entertaining ourselves. Oh my God. So good at it.
Sounds like it.
Yeah. The Chateau of Sin, you see the Sin neon sign that's in the background. That was Chuck Varga and Mike Delaney's workspace. And God, we would be in there for hours, all night long. Okay, let's make Gwar. What should we make it out of? We would try and steal stuff. We'd find places that we knew, okay, we could get some, stuff from here. Oh yeah, there it is. Yeah. Oh, those guys were at the heart of it. That was always such a good time. And it would go on for hours. Dave and Hunter would show up, and it wasn't a whole lot else to do. We didn't have a lot of money, but we had this huge space. And then we used the art school. VCU was a pretty good art school, so we could use the sculpture department. Oh yeah, that's all Cardinal Sin.
Yeah, I think that's a pre-Cardinal Sin. I think that was
it's the beginning of it.
Something else, yeah.
And then Hunter was, he had, we were all into comic books and B movies and Japanese monsters and all the, just all kind of fell together. And, everybody brought something to the table in terms of, either their influence or their ability to build stuff.
What did you bring to the table?
Oh, well, I had the gumption to to do it. Yeah, I'll do it. I'll make this sword. I'll help you, put Gwar together. I've got a bass amp, I got, I'll get naked.
Mm-hmm.
I was up for a good time, and
Yeah.
I had good music. Black Flag. It was, at that point, if I saw someone with a Black Flag T-shirt, I was walking across the street and introducing myself.
Well, yeah, you're on the record label.
Well, even before that,
yeah. I mean, they were, they were the pioneers of the punk scene at the time.
Oh, yeah. Well, we're all from DC. Dave's from DC. Sean was from DC. Russ is the only member of GWAR, other than Bobby Gorman, that's probably from Richmond. All the rest of us are Northern Virginia refugees. We carpetbagged this pathetic southern city. We totally took it over. But we were, DC hardcore. We were into Minor Threat. We were into Void. We're into Black Flag, Bad Brains, MDC, Dead Kennedys. That was what we were into. That was our, that was our inspiration.
Yeah, Jello was a fan of Death Piggy.
Oh no, yeah, that was huge. And then the Butthole Surfers came here for a while. Oh my God, they were here for a week. That was incredible. And GWAR. I mean, other than Avail, I think those are the two bands that really kind of helped shape kind of a certain attitude and musical direction of the city, artistic vision, and as I like to say, put Richmond on the map. I never would.
Kind of did though. Like,
well, none of us thought that. We weren't thinking.
You didn't think 30 years later I'd be drinking GWAR Arctic cocktails?
As I like, well, I think it's great. Dave used to say, "You'll turn on the TV and our video will be there." As a kind of, and I think about that now. Like right now, I could go and look at 30 years of GWAR. So yes, GWAR will make the video and it'll be on there. And he was such a great motivator. He could motivate large groups of people, and he could be a cheerleader. He knew who needed to be whipped into shape. He knew who needed to be prodded and coddled. That was his kind of gift. Beyond his unique ability, he could really bring people together under a single vision. And they're still trying to find that they're still kind of, they're going now and it's set, but they still kind of, I know they kind of missed that vision. And then also someone to blame, Dave was also his worst fucking enemy, How many times did they have what many people thought would be a clear path to success that Dave, for whatever reason, brought to its knees? So he was a man of violent contradictions, but I liked playing with him, but again, I wanted to be the star of my own show. And with Dave, you're a supporting cast member.
Well, I guess this is a good time to ask, like, what did you think of the documentary?
I think now probably Bob. Huh?
What did you think of the documentary?
What's that?
What did you think of the documentary?
I thought it was a good, kind of MTV behind the music kind of, approach to it. As a kind of a mainstream view of GWAR, and that's what they wanted. So I think it's successful. And with 30 years, how do you cram 30 years into 2 hours? You're never going to get, everything. And nor should you, I think it was a good narrative, for the dim time, they talked to Colette, who, really, truth be told, really had precious little to do with the band other than being Dave's girlfriend.
Did they ask you to be in it at all? Did they approach you for it? No.
How could they? It was like, I think I saw myself in some fleeting images, But
No,
I
yeah,
didn't.
sure. Yeah. There was some
I didn't.
secret court footage in there and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a bit player in this story. And if you're looking at it, as a whole, I'm a very teeny tiny part of this thing. But for the dim time, I mean, she was not a prime mover in the
Yeah.
experience.
I mean, I
She
don't
was
blame her for being in the documentary, though. I think they asked her and she said yes, and now it's like
Oh, sure.
it's their
No.
fault that they didn't ask more people from that era to be representing, I think.
Well, I mean, she was there. She was in California. She was in
Right.
there. She built this stuff. She was with Dave. She sings on the
Mhm.
recording. She was, a member, a part of it. But I will say, she was their relationship and was a big reason. Not It was one of the deciding factors why I was like, "Fuck this band. I
Oh,
am
really?
not going to. I am not going to deal with this
Uh-oh.
anymore." Yeah.
It
Well,
was
it's like Dave and Colette fighting over all types of, like, during that footage of us outside of Channel 6. We're literally freezing outside. That's real snow. And we're wearing loincloths, right? And we're in the back. We drove all the way up there, 2.5 miles, in the back of a pickup truck, freezing. So we're getting ready to film. Colette feels the urge to ask, but is it art? She wants to have a discussion about what we're doing. Is it worthy of creative expression? Is this really art? She's literally having this discussion. We're all like, "Fuck you, Colette. God damn it. I'm freezing to death. Let's just get this." I said, "I don't know how I feel about it."
I see.
I was like, "I'm going to choke you to death." But that was, that's her, and she did her part and has gone on and has done, led a pretty creative life, which
Mhm.
is good, and she's worked hard. But I'm glad that our creative paths diverged, and I never did anything with her since then. But that's me. But she was a part of it, so they interviewed her and they gave that part of the group, which is only, no one remembers their birth or childhood. The more important stuff happened later. And I think the narrative that they chose of Dave and Hunter is the one you go with, because they were,
Of course.
the two fathers of Gwar, and Gwar would not have turned into what it is today without either one of them. So, and of course, they've bickered and fought like anybody. If you know someone for 30 years or you work like those guys worked, we all worked at that time, there's going to be, issues. So,
Sure. Yeah.
and only a few people can really hang with it. Bobby, has been with it so long, and Brad and Dirks and
Mhm.
Bishop now. I mean, but Bishop had to take a break. Dirks
Mhm.
and Brad have been able to maintain. Oh my
Sustain,
God, a
yeah.
tsunami of emotional turmoil that band is. And going back to what my mother said, this band is going to kill people. It did kill people. But rock and roll is kind of it's an ugly game. Yeah, I used to torture Dave with the Gene Simmons quote. He'd say, there's a lot of people to be famous. Just remember to be rich and famous. And I was like, Dave, you forgot the rich part. Yeah.
Mhm. Mhm.
Because those guys, they work, harder than any band, going. And they still have to have other jobs. They still have to do other
Right.
things. That's why they, thankfully, they can sell beer products and open a restaurant. All these things that we thought were impossible back in the day. It's through their strength and vision, through the various members throughout the years have been able to do that. And they've stuck with it all over this time, even though I feel, people ask me about it. It's like, yeah, it's like, telling a fart joke in 30 years ago that people still think is funny.
Right.
So, but it's pretty amazing that it's still going, and especially for how profane it was and how it still is. Um,
You're gonna go see Gwar with Mudvayne. They're gonna play arenas now. That's a big step. Look, Live Nation. They finally made it to Live Nation. So everyone go buy a ticket.
No. I hate all
No.
those bands. I mean, I truly do detest metal music. There's only a couple that I really like. You know, I love Slayer. I saw Slayer a bunch. I liked, you know, Metallica, of course, back in the day. I remember Megadeth playing here in Richmond, and Dave Mustaine went off on some pro Reagan rant, and we all booed him and threw beer on him.
So even back then, he was kind of a
it's just a, you know, fuck you. Yeah, I remember seeing Death Angel, Exodus, you know, that kind of when metal became cool in the later, you know, mid '80s. Later, I liked some of that stuff, but oh my god, I remember seeing Lamb of God. This is probably fucking 12 years ago, but I'm upstairs. I've known all those guys for decades, you know.
Yeah, and
you know, they stuck with it. They're smart guys, you know. So I'm upstairs at the National, and I look down, and there's this guy. I mean, it's packed on the floor. And it's funny, when I walked out on the floor, usually you smell beer. What I smelled at that show was it was bourbon. It was like, fuck, oh my God. So I go upstairs, and this guy starts puking, not down, but up. I mean, he's like a vomit sprinkler, just vomiting all over everybody around him. And they couldn't move because they're all packed in there like sardines. And that went on through the whole night. I was like, oh my God, these people are fucking annihilated. And, you know, funny thing about that place, the National, like Dave and I in '85 were walking around downtown Richmond, Virginia, and that place was abandoned. And we kicked in the back door of the National, and it was an old single screen movie theater. And we walked in there, and it was desolate. I remember we were like, what? Why would they let this thing rot? You know? But Richmond, I mean, it took so long for Richmond to recover from the white flight of 1968, because, you know, once Kennedy and King were killed, American cities burned, the tax base left Richmond, Virginia. And it didn't come back. I mean, we show up, you know, 20 odd years later, and it's still damaged. You know, nobody was downtown. You know, only thing that kept the city alive were the university, VCU, and that it's the capital of Virginia. But after 5 o'clock, nobody was downtown, and which was great for us, because, hey, we're going to go start GWAR in this building, you know. And our rent was, I had a freezer, you know, the original freezer that GWAR Death Biggie practiced in. It was,
I heard about that. Yeah.
Yeah, it was gigantic. It was $50 a month. So it was like, we could do anything. And, you know, we had the time, will, and inclination. And, you know, it was like, you know, that's what I like most about it. And I lament how Richmond's become more and more occupied, is that these things can't really happen here anymore unless you have a lot of money. And there's a city about 15 miles from Richmond called Petersburg, which is, you know, no, but it looks like Richmond, Virginia in the 80s. And I see all these abandoned, you know, buildings, and, you know, I'm just like, oh my God, the next GWAR should start here. So if anybody is, you know, wants to start an artist collective or wants to be a traveling band on the East Coast, move to Petersburg because it is so cheap. I mean, you could get, you know, a huge building for a couple $100, you know, in rent. And then you're right on the East Coast, right off 95. You can hop and skip right up to DC, Baltimore, Philly, New York, Boston, all the nooks and crannies in between, or you go down south to North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, you know, all the way down to Florida, you know, and
all right,
live like
chat.
kings.
Yeah. Chat, we're starting a band. Who's with me? We're moving. We're going to start a collective. We're going to be the next GWAR, not literally, but, you know. I want to give some love to the people here in the chat. Let's see. James is not drinking, but is definitely blazing up.
Oh,
John
nice.
Poppy's here. Hail to the original BalSac.
All right.
Hello, brother John. They're talking to each other. I mean, this is way back, but Rick's Picks is in the house.
All right.
Gwar Man Vinny's in the house, of course. Always. Clifford's here. Fredder's late, but it's Bopst time.
You know what? Our first record, we used to, we were like, okay, for our first record, we were going to call it Asshole. And it would be a Mylar cover so that when you looked into it, you would see your face. And it would be called Asshole. I know there was some preliminary discussion for Hello for that to actually come to fruition. And I was pushing so hard for Dave. I was like, Dave, you got to do it. Please, God. But it was too expensive.
Yeah.
Like, oh. But that was our original dream. Like, we're going to do an album, and that would be the cover, called Asshole. I still think that would be awesome.
Hey, Gwar, they're still around. They could still do it.
No, I hope so. Well, I hope that, the Dim Time movie is done.
Tell me about the Dim Time movie.
Well, Don,
because I've been waiting for this forever.
Oh, no, yeah. Don gave me a cut of it probably 2 years ago. And, I mean, that was the original version of the documentary. That was the first thing. But, of course, it's like you can't just
I've seen the trailers
story.
and everything,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Of course. But still, like, I want to see that story.
No, I joked to Bobby. I saw him not too long ago. I was like, I guess Dim Time will come out when some more people die.
Did he laugh?
Yeah, of course. I mean, Bobby's hilarious.
Yeah,
I love Bob. Every time I see him, it's funny because he had a health issue in England, and I love this story. The doctor was like, you've lost a lot of blood. How did you not know that you had lost all this blood? So apparently, Bobby thought he had food poisoning, and of course, he's outside of a Gwar gig, shitting in the bushes. He's like, I wasn't looking at my shit. I just figured I was just squirting out my ass. So Bobby was, spitting out blood out of his ass close to death. Oh, that was hilarious. And it turned out that he had got a hole in his stomach from taking, what is it? The powdered BC powder. Like he would, he said, I've been in Gwar for so long, I'm always in pain, and he was the slave. He's in the costumes. He's getting knocked around. He's moving all the time. He's loading in. Bobby's one of the most tireless workers, not only in Gwar, of anybody I've ever known in music. So Bobby's doing the responsible thing. Oh, I don't feel so. I'll take some BC powder and kind of, power on through this show. And it turns out he's been taking BC powder for decades like that, burned a hole in his gut.
Oh, no.
I was like,
we can't lose Bobby.
Oh, no. Of course.
It's
Bobby.
important. Like, because, when those costume people go, that's when they say the band's going to go, when they can't replace the costume people. You can always replace the musicians.
I would definitely, Bobby is, as important as Dave was, Bobby is of equal importance. I mean, he's held this together. He's the documentarian for the group. He's probably the most steady of them. Him and Brad and Dirks. Have been
I think he's been
forever.
in the band for 35 years.
Yeah, and when Bobby first showed up, he was the little kid that liked hanging out. And of course, and Gwar was was home for wayward souls, and we kept people around. Of course, like, hey man, cool, hang out. Yeah, you want to make a dick for us? Cool. Yeah, go over there. There's some stuff.
Oh, speaking of dicks, can we do some Gwar news? You ready for some Gwar news?
Sure, yeah.
Let me share this screen here. Just today, it's been announced. Oh, Gwar is nominated for some kind of porn award for their giant cuttlefish dicks from Bad Dragon.
Oh, nice.
So go vote the Alt Star Awards I guess it's presented by Bad Dragon, but go vote for them so they can get some more accolades for their dicks. I mean, cuttlefish. It's not a dick, it's a fish. So everyone go and vote.
Hilarious.
That's the news as of today for Gwar. Could you did you ever expect this to be in production? I got the black one up.
No, but we did dream about it. I will say that we did. Gwar never. We weren't shy with our dreams. I mean, they were all kind of world domination, and they kind of, it kind of worked out that way.
Were there any dreams? Were there any like dreams and aspirations that haven't come to fruition that are interesting to talk about? Like, what are some ideas that they had back then that could still be?
No, I mean, it's I would think that maybe franchise Gwar bar, maybe. I mean, because the guys now are.
We could use one here in New York City area. Come on, guys.
Definitely. I mean, because they're not getting any younger. And we've talked about from my time, like franchising out Gwar, sort of like Kiss has kind of tried to.
Well, I'm a member of Green Jelly, and they started franchising. So
sure, I mean, and those guys have worked so hard for so long, but Christ, the youngest of them are in their early 50s. So
I think Brent's pretty young. I think 60. Brent's my name. I think Brent's my age. Surprisingly, right. I'm 39. I think he's about that age, but everyone else is like in their 50s for sure.
Yeah, well, the show. Think about that show.
It's a tough show, man. It's a hard road. I mean, I can't imagine playing with all that weight on you, like even just as a musician.
I know it's funny when I hear Kiss come. Oh yeah, it's so hard to be Kiss, man. Oh, come on now. You've got here, Gene. Here's your bass. Okay, good. Okay, go play the songs you played for 30 years. Okay, get off stage. Okay, go back to your hotel.
Still a great show though. I saw the Kiss final tour a couple years ago. They're still doing it. Last show.
Oh no, yeah.
New York City, Madison Square Garden at the end of the year. That's it.
Oh no, yeah. I mean, I love Kiss, but
great show.
I fully acknowledge that Kiss sucks too, and I love how much Kiss sucks. It's a real love. It's a true love.
Sure.
But I hope that Gwar will, what I want for them is to be able to, franchise it, at least the bar, and also do the drinks, and because these guys have worked so hard for so long. I mean, even though they're doing this arena tour, they should be headlining at this point.
I know. That's why I'm encouraging people to go, even if they don't like Mudvayne and Cold Chamber and all those other bands, because if they get the support, maybe they will be the headlining band next time.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like the Ramones that became. Do you ever see that the two documentaries? Like, they realized at a certain point that they're not going to get any bigger. Like they attained a level of success that
if they were alive today, they would be playing the biggest shows in the world. But they're all gone.
It kills me that that Joey never to see like the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame or to hear the Ramones at a football game. I remember playing the Ramones and people trying to beat me up. I mean,
what a trajectory.
For all the early Gwar. They were such a seminal band, but I think of the Ramones are like a good parallel to Gwar because no matter how hard they try, Gwar can only get but so big, and that's because, people point out the profanity and things, but
I mean,
they've achieved a level of success that they probably won't be able to surpass, and that would kill some people.
Let's hope. I want to see that. I mean, I want to see that stadium level Gwar show one day, just to see what it would be like.
No, I would love to see Gwar with a production budget in the millions. I would like to see Gwar with the production budget of Kiss.
Gwar should have movies that are like the parallel to Marvel movies, but like with big dicks in them.
Oh, I would like to see. I would like to see Hunter like, you know, his original Vision movies. I
Me
would, you know, because
too.
we loved the B movies of the 70s. You know, those kind
Yeah,
of cheesy
sure.
ass monster movies. And I know
What's
that's
your
what he
favorite
was.
ones?
Oh, the Godzilla with what's Mothra? What was is that it? With
I don't
the
know.
giant moth. Oh my
Mothra's
god!
the
And then
character,
I
yeah.
grew up with Ultraman too and Creature
So those
Feature. I was a teen.
kaiju big battles.
Oh yeah,
Mhm.
just awesome. And that was such a profound influence on all of us, and the original dim time era. And you know, that's still, you know, carried out in every
Wow.
death scene that Gwar has.
Speaking of GWAR movies, actually the first time I remember consciously knowing who you were was because of Bloodbath and Beyond. So do
Oh
you want to
no,
tell us
yeah.
about that? Because then it was like, hey, this guy was the original guy in GWAR. This was like before the internet was really big, you know. So
Well, that's where I played the DJ, right? Is
yeah, you
that
were in like a wheelchair,
oh no, yeah.
right?
That one.
I haven't watched it in a long time, but that sounds
Oh
about
no,
right. Yeah,
they were at that point. I was doing radio 5 days a week, and so
right.
Dave and the Slave Pit, they were listening to, you know, the Bub Show every day on AM radio, and they were down on Hall Street when the Guar space was there, and so you know they, you know, when they were in town, Bobby or Dave would call all the time, and I would play. I remember playing Anton Maiden. I would play like Bobby loves horrible music, like that's his favorite music of
Hmm.
all time. Like he loves Bruce Willis and bad music, so I would play songs. The only reason I would play them was to make Bobby laugh. That was the only, like Antoine Maiden. You ever heard that? The guy that's
No, I don't
singing
know him. Who is that?
Anton, that's singing Iron Maiden covers. Look that up.
Let's look
Anton
it up
Maiden.
right now.
Oh my
Anton
God.
Maiden. We're gonna look it up
Anton
right
Maiden.
now.
Oh my God. But Bobby really likes outsider music. So that's where the whole idea came up with the radio DJ, because they were listening to me on the radio every day. And I
Mhm.
knew that they were listening. So I would tell inside jokes on the radio just to make those guys laugh. Oh,
Oops.
did you find? Ah,
Let's
yeah.
see.
This Bobby Gorman loves this. Come on now.
Let me skip through it a little bit.
Yeah.
Oh, I see. Yeah, it's kind of reminds me of like Adam and his package or something like that. Yeah.
Oh, I mean, the guy is so you know, way outside, you know, outsider music that would drive people
Sure.
crazy. But that's the type of music that Bobby loves, and that was a bad recording of it. Not that
Right.
there's great recordings of it, but it is truly hilarious. And then he loved Miss Miller and Sheeby Taylor, a bunch of outsider stuff. There was one when Gwar was on Shimmy Disc.
Mhm.
Kramer sent us a bunch of records. You know, we're like, oh, awesome. And you know, some of them we liked, other ones we didn't really like.
Let me
The
grab my
one,
props here. There we
oh no,
go.
yeah.
Hello on Shimmy Disc Records.
Oh God,
Yeah.
everybody was so excited about that.
So cool.
I know. I remember telling them, why did I get credit? Because you don't get
Yeah.
credit for anything.
I know there's no songwriting credits on this, which is too bad. I mean, I think they're on
I
Wikipedia
know.
somewhere, but yeah, that's for the
Doesn't matter.
reissue
It
guys.
doesn't matter.
It matters to me because I like the
But
details like that.
the record we loved, then this is all dim time, was that Fred Lane and the Hittite Hot Shots. And it's not a Kramer production, but it's this surreal big
What was it
band.
called?
Fred Lane and the Hittite Hot Shots.
Ah, I see.
French Toast Man, White Woman, Upper Lip of a Nostril Man. Oh, woo.
Yeah,
We
here we go.
played the shit out of that.
Let's check it out.
Oh
Oops.
God, we love that. He was like he's a Dada surrealist big band. Oh yeah, there we go. Oh yeah.
Bobby, well, I'm gonna get you on the show at some point. We're gonna talk about the archive.
Oh no, yeah, that's
Oh
great.
yeah.
That was one of the ones that we listened to all the time. Then we listened to. I remember this summer that Nation of Millions came out by Public Enemy. It was public that summer. We listened to Nation of Millions and Negative Land's Escape from Noise, and those both those records kind of influenced America Must Be Destroyed because we started. Okay. That's when Muscle really had a hand, and Dave Muscle.
Yeah,
is
the
really
sampling and everything. Yeah,
he's the unsung hero.
Dave Muscle. He's number 3 on my list. It's Scott Kroll, Mike Bonner, and Muscle. Come on the show. If anyone can find those guys for me.
Muscle, Gwar probably would have ended because he had the know-how, he had the means to get Gwar through.
He helped build the bus and everything, right?
Oh no, he helped build the Alternatives bus. I mean, that, I mean, he was such a pivotal.
Did you have a school bus too, or no?
We had a short bus. We literally had a short handicap bus that we put in. I guess in 6 years, we put 280,000 miles on it. So we got our full brunt out of that thing. Oh my God. And thanks to Muscle, he designed the whole inside so that we could sleep. We could sleep in the back and put all our equipment in, but if you broke in, you couldn't get it out. So he mapped it out so that our equipment fit in perfectly. So even if you broke out a window, you couldn't pull anything out.
Tetris master.
No, he was genius. And but yeah, that was, listening to Nation of Millions by Public Enemy and Negative Land's Escape from Noise really had a kind of profound effect on Gwar going forward. And the Last Poets with America Must Be Destroyed, that was
the white man's got a God complex.
Well, that record is insane. I mean, if you listen, I mean, all the things that they talk about, in 1968, 69 are still prevalent today. And I don't know if that record could be made today, which is sad.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, it
was the opposite for me. I found out about the Last Poets because of Gwar.
Isn't that hilarious?
Yeah.
But yeah, everybody in Gwar had a kind of like an open mind for music. We listened, and people were always excited. Whoever who won out in arguments was who was the most excited, who could get the other people into it, and that kind of went to music. Like people were like, oh, you gotta fucking hear this, and of course we'll fucking listen to it. We're making dicks. Yeah, we need something to listen to. So. And there was always that kind of creative, there was always that kind of creative energy around the band because there were so many people in and out, and then not only the players, but then their friends, and it was a big social center, and also where I, kind of went to find out about new things, and also for sculpture advice.
Yeah, did you help build any?
They were always honing their craft, and they still are to this day.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, they're always trying to perfect their show. So I hope that one day they're able to, because none of those guys they all have to work. I mean, that's, not like that would justify, that they should sit back on their laurels, because
no, but they deserve it. Like what they've created is incredible, and is worth something. I believe
it's bigger than any one person. It's truly the sum of all the people that have been in it. And I'm proud to be a very teeny tiny part of,
but a founding part.
No, I love saying that. A founding member.
Please say it. I said it for you, but I want you to say it for yourself.
Well, never would I have thought in my, when we were, arguing over what color brown fluid had the proper amount of semen and blood in it. What was the right color? While we're having these arguments late at night, that later in my life, that I would get jobs because I was in Gwar. People would suddenly be like, oh, like I was an important person. I mean, and I think that probably holds true.
I think it's important.
Sure. Well, I think most things that, they don't start with any kind of preconceived idea. We were just very excitable. We wanted to do it. We liked each other. We fed off each other. We liked being around. We laughed. And that's the thing, we got together and laughed and laughed and laughed, like, oh, this will be so awesome. Just I couldn't wait to like fist fuck Reagan on stage. Oh my God, that'll be so good. Spending hours on Reagan's ass, making sure my arm fit in there properly. We got to make sure blood squirts out every time my fist goes in.
The important things, of course.
Well, I mean, spending hours doing that. That was what, our minds were working on. Like, we got to make this look good. And then years later, I got jobs because, oh, you were in Gwar. I remember, the last touring I did, serious touring at all, was I filled in for Dave in DBX because he broke his hand.
Oh, that's something I did want to. Yes, do tell.
He broke his hand. He broke his hand at Greg Ottinger's house watching the Cowboys and Redskins, and the Redskins lost to the Cowboys. Dave punches the kitchen table and breaks his hand. So I had to learn the Dave Brockie Experience songs in like 48 hours.
Oh, on bass?
Yeah. So I did I think we did 12, 13 shows with me on bass.
Oh, wow.
And I came back after 2.5 weeks.
Don't mind me. I'm going through my archive here.
My wife is like,
there we go.
And she's like, I'm like, how you doing? She's like, what's wrong with your voice? And I was like, I've been laughing for 2 weeks. I mean, I literally couldn't talk. Like every day.
Wow.
There was probably 2 or 3
video
times
of these shows.
Oh yeah.
Somewhere. I've never seen any of those.
2 or 3 times a day where I would be convulsing in laughter. Just couldn't stand up. I was laughing so hard, either through Dave or, Dirk's eyes looking at Dave, or, Brad, like there were 5 of us in the band. Jeremy was the sound man, driver, but oh my God, I just laughed hysterically. I mean, but then after that tour, they were like, Dave can never not play bass again. Because he was out of control.
Oh yeah, he definitely has a style.
Well, it's funny. I mean, he has like 2 or 3 bass runs that I had to learn that he basically used for everything. But it was, and then playing with Brad and Dirks was just, those guys are beasts.
Oh yeah,
those guys are monster players,
and they've been playing together for
lost.
So long.
Well, but I mean, even before they joined Gwar, they were great players. And I mean, Brad's a monster and Dirks is a monster. And when you mix him up with Bishop, I mean, they're powerful, and they'll never really be appreciated for their musical ability. Sadly, that's why I would like for them is like, I wish that someone would be like, damn, that's a good fucking song. Those guys are great musicians. And they are. I was definitely the weak link in that chain, but oh my God, I had so much fun doing that tour with them.
Well, good thing you reminded me, because I definitely needed to bring up the first Dave Brockie Experience record, Masturbate. Tell me about Masturbate.
Oh yeah, that was Jim Thompson. He's the master of what we call the idiot ditty. And he would come up with these sayings that they would sing all the time. The most famous of which is Sick of You, which was a Jim Thompson idiot ditty.
That's what we got to
that
talk
he-
about. You guys, Jim Thompson on the show in a couple weeks.
Oh no,
Gotta
yeah,
be
that's
here.
a total Jim Thompson sick. And we would go around the sleigh pit and just be like, "Oh, I'm so sick of you. Oh my god, so sick of you." And then, of course, Dave took it and made it into a song, and it turned out to, it's a catchy ass
It's their
song. And
biggest hit, like right now.
Jim has a knack for that, and Masturbate turned out to be another one of his idiot ditties. There's one called Helen's Ready. She's ready to go. She's ready to take on this 20-man show. I mean, he has so many. But yeah, that's where Masturbate came from. And they would do spoken word gigs together. I forget what they called it. Jim used to do this thing called Bric-a-Brac, which was like a kind of a variety show that he would put together. And then him and Dave would come up with little skits together. And that's what blossomed from the Spoken Turd. And then Adam Green produced that. Adam Green was friends with went to high school with Greg Ottinger from the Alternatives, and
produced Buzz, didn't he?
Produced Buzz. He produced Diary of a Madman and Songs for the Wrong. And so, yeah, he was a big part of that. That record's so great. They're so awful. Hard for a Tard. So many. Oh, my God, so good. It's funny how those songs will come to mind. Dave's songs come to me, like not so much Gwar songs, but Death Piggy songs and his solo stuff. Like these catchy, and he always reminded me of kind of like an Elvis Costello. Like his voice was really powerful. His subject matter was always decidedly infantile, but
no kidding.
He had just a monstrous voice and a really good ear for a hook. I just wish, with Gwar, I think after Sick of You, they never came up with another like sing along song. You know what I mean? I mean, that's what kind of made, Metallica kind of had like their sing along stuff. Something that people can grasp onto. So I
don't know. Fuck This Place is pretty good to sing along.
That's good. Oh no, yeah.
Yeah.
They've had hits here and there, but I don't think. I mean, Sick of You will be there. I mean, rock and roll.
Sick of You. They have that's their like, Freebird. They have to play it every show.
Yeah, they're rock and roll.
Like I'm tired of hearing Sick of You, but hey, whatever. It's cool.
Oh no, but it still creeps in my head. Like it will definitely earworm me.
As fuck. Yeah.
Oh no, yeah. And that album was such a that was kind of their first real taste of success.
Oh, yeah.
And they were also very, we were all super happy for them, I mean, that was a really big, that was their first creative burst, I thought. And that's when Liz Fairbairn became involved, and she was instrumental in orchestrating a lot of things that would happen in the next decade.
What was it? Tragic Mulatto?
Yeah. Well, she was, San Francisco. I mean, she knew all of our heroes, Flipper and Dead Kennedys, and she had the right mindset.
What was it? She booked the Covered Wagon Saloon. Is that what is that correct?
Yeah. You should interview
I know her because she used to book. I know. Well, I've talked to her briefly. I'm making a documentary about Haunted Garage, so she used to book them as well.
Oh no, yeah, she's still working hard. She does the Luca Voom in LA.
Yeah, and, she hooked Hunter up with wrestling.
No, she's a creative force in her own right. And,
here, let me ask you. Oh yeah, go ahead.
One of those, heroes of Gwar. I mean, she maintained her era, and that's why I think that every 5 years you could do a documentary on Gwar, or at least every decade, because there's different, people come and go. And I got to know, almost every era of the band, so it's funny to kind of see it from beginning to end. I've seen you grow from boy to man.
Yeah.
And now in
From
old
a
age.
seed.
So,
From a seed.
yeah. It's hilarious.
Here, I got one more prop I want you to talk about. Tell me about Burma Jam.
Oh, right. That's
Look at this.
oh, right. Yeah.
Yeah.
We put that out together. There's Jim. That's Alternatives in Birmingham. That's Tim Harris.
C. Maynard Bopst.
Mm-hmm.
That's how you're credited here.
Yes. A friend of mine, Damian Samuel, gave me that name.
That's you in the, right there.
And there's Tim Harris next to me.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there's all an HR shirt because we were playing with HR a bunch then.
Right.
But yeah, Birmingham was a great reggae band at that, in Richmond, Virginia. And that's Scott Wolf on the inside, who was the sound man for GWAR for many years.
Yeah, I would love to talk to Scott Wolf too, because he produced a bunch of their albums too.
No, he's a
and Capone as well.
Yeah, he's a great engineer. And the Tim Harris went on to play with Bishop and Keepon. And they're playing together now.
Oh, really? What? Keepon they have Burma Jam.
Well, they have. It's kind of hush hush, so I probably shouldn't say anything. But it'll probably be.
Would you like a GWAR smash?
It's a super group of sorts, but
okay,
that's on the back burner. I'll let them tell you about. But
I heard nothing. We're totally not live on the internet right now.
Tim is a great artist too. Tim is a great painter.
Yeah. Oh, really?
He had a recent. That's where I saw Bobby last. It was at his art opening at the Eric Schindler Gallery here in Richmond, Virginia. But
nice.
He's a great oil painter and he sells out at shows. He's the principal art handler at the Virginia Museum, tying into the story about the Caligula gay man scene in outside of the Virginia Museum. But now Tim Harris is there and it's much more cleaned up now. He's a great artist and a great guitar player.
I love Keepon. Yeah, and I know he did stints as Flatus and GWAR as well.
Oh no, yeah. But he's played with Eka Mouse. I mean, he's a well-rounded creative figure.
Nice. The chat's gone pretty quiet. Do you guys have any questions for Chris Bopst? Get him in now. Can you believe we've done 2 hours already?
Oh no, yeah.
The scum dogs like to talk. What else do you remember about the development of GWAR? Or did you have any discussions about the story or the characters that you were like when you were wearing that mask? Were you like creating a backstory for BalSac?
No, at the time, my goal with BalSac was to make the jaws move up and down. That was my sole thing, and to try to keep myself from getting hurt.
How successful were you at both of those? I see the jaws moving.
I saved Dave's testicles at one point.
Please do tell.
There was we created these explosions again. We were novice bomb makers, but I think it was Bobby put an obscene amount of gunpowder into a smoke bomb that was supposed to go off at a pivotal point in the show. And for whatever reason, I can't see anything without my glasses. It's very hard. Everything's blurry, but I love
seeing the glasses underneath the jaws. It's like
I can.
Oh, that's Chris.
I am pretty much blind, but I was keenly aware. I wasn't wearing my glasses at this point, but I was keenly aware of this particular smoke bomb because I saw the amount of gunpowder that went into it, and I knew exactly where it was at any time. And throughout that show, I was keeping my eye on it, keeping away from it. So I forget what the song it was, but
do you remember where?
I was aware that Dave was up on the riser with his arms up in the air, literally with this bomb right 2 feet from his crotch. I was like, oh my God. And so I just run over and kick him off. and turn around, and this thing goes off, and it was just like I could feel the heat all the way up my back, and there was like a melted part on the back of the helmet. I mean, it was a spectacular explosion, but I have no doubt that if he had stayed there, he would have felt it on his testicles.
Wow.
And it would have been tragic.
Do you remember where that show was?
I think that was at Flood Zone. That was the Flood Zone show. And that was the show where Tim Herman, he was supposed to come out and give us cocaine at the show because we didn't want to play unless we had cocaine. So he brought cocaine out into this old suitcase we had found in the alley that we had filled for whatever reason with powdered sugar.
Oh, no.
Unbeknownst to us, he had spent all day getting wasted. So by the time he shows up to the gig, he is drunk as hell.
Oh, was this the Sluggo character?
Oh, he was, oh my God, he was so wasted. So we go out to do this skit, pretend like we're doing coke. He takes the entire suitcase of powdered sugar and throws it on us. So we have our instruments, and it's like my fretboard was like goo. It's like I would hold my finger and the bass string would just stick there. Oh. So the show was just horrible. We proceeded to beat him, and we tied him up outside.
Yeah, didn't you leave him on the side of the road? Or
he deserved every horrible thing that happened to him.
Oh no!
But still, I mean, the genius of GWAR at that point is that it didn't matter. It was such a spectacle that, it was sold out. And even during the pre-recorded show where I'm holding my hands up like this, people were like, "You guys sounded great." And I'm sure it did sound great through the PA because it was just a tape, Mm-hmm. It wasn't even a CD. It was literally a cassette tape going. And I'm sure it did.
Who has that cassette?
I have my cassette. My guess would be Adam Green. Adam Green probably has.
I got to talk to Adam Green. Is he still around? Have you talked to him?
I think he's in DC. I haven't talked to him. Maybe and Jim or Greg.
For those out there, Adam Green, not the Adam Green filmmaker who created Holliston with Otis Urungus as a character. A different Adam Green who used to produce records.
Yeah, he's up in DC. He's lived up there for probably 25 years now. It's funny. Dave and I used to go to Redskins games, and he would have season tickets, and those were always very, very funny. My wife would always be worried, like, "You're driving, right?" I was like, "Yeah." That was part of the deal because I don't usually drink, so I would drive up, and Dave would, just get annihilated. But he could handle a heroic amount of drugs. Like, he took so many drugs that, fuck, it would kill most people. Of course, he dies of heroin.
Eventually.
So we went to so many games where he was just annihilated, but somehow could still hold it together and still be funny, which was another one of his superpowers. But, Adam enabled a lot of that. And so I remember we were leaving a Redskins game that the Redskins had lost, and Dave insisted on driving.
Oh, no.
And we were all nervous. And Adam had a friend of his, a younger punker kid that was into Discord and was straight edge, whereas Dave was wasted drunk. And he was driving erratically, and he took off in front of this cop, and then they pulled us over. I was like, "Oh my God, we are going to jail." And the guy's like, "What is up with you?" And he's like, "Oh, Dave just I just thought I should go, And the guy was just like, "Just get out of here." And I was like, "Oh my God." And then Dave's like, "Oh, good, I got a half sheet of acid in my back pocket."
Oh no!
I was like, Jesus Christ, Dave! And then the kid that was in the backseat with Adam was like mortified. He was truly, truly terrified. Whereas I was a giggle fit.
Oh,
Oh my
thankfully
God.
everybody survived that one.
Oh no, yeah. I mean, there's so many stories like that with Dave that post GWAR, and then that tour we did together was just truly, truly hysterical. Um, and I felt like he was getting ready to go on to the next chapter,
Right,
because I
that's how
know
I
he was
hear.
trying to find the way out of GWAR, or somehow move on
Yeah,
to other
maybe
things.
replace himself or something like that, right?
Just something, do something else, because he had
Yeah.
done it for so long at that point, and his body was beaten. I mean, he
He
was.
gave up kind of. I mean, I saw the last show he did in New York City. It was like, ugh.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard. That's a hard road. It's so. I mean, sort of like the Ramones in the sense, like, God damn, you've been playing Sheena as a punk rocker for 35 years. You know what I mean? And that's nothing. Like, you got to put on that costume, you got to sweat, you got to smell your filthy filth.
He's not odorous for nothing.
You got to deal with 20 people. You know what I mean? The whole crew and the whole band. You got to try to hold that shit together. It's not for the weak, but and now they're so much more professional. But Dave
Right.
kind of had to do that with a wing and a prayer. And just through the strength of his will, did it happen. GWAR, as I said before, GWAR couldn't have happened without Dave and Hunter. Those are the two building blocks, and then everything else is, built on top of that.
Mm-hmm. Jimmy asks, "How was that Schaefer Court show?" We talked about that, but if you have any other last minute memories of it,
Well,
I would
definitely,
love
it
to
put
hear
it
it.
put GWAR on the map in terms of we within our music world, the couple hundred people that would go to shows in Richmond, people knew who we were. But the Schaefer Court was a free outdoor concert series that VCU put on. So, and that brings in 30,000 people to Richmond. And, Friday, Halloween,
Yeah, Halloween.
it was probably it was the biggest show we had played to at that point. It was probably, a couple thousand people there. So, and it was the first orchestrated show, or at least some kind of game plan was put in shape. We spent a considerable amount of time the first time to put on a show, and it went off better than we could have expected. Like, it was, and I think that's what set that, from that show on, is when it became what it is today. Starting then, everything else was kind of just thrown together, kind of, we're going to have fun. And then this was the first kind of serious, okay, well, this could be something. And it was exciting. I mean, we were, we were all thrilled with how well that came off. And, and that's why, it's the GWAR today started that night.
Release the Schaefer Court show.
Somebody has it. Ted, I think is his
Yeah.
name. Somebody has the footage.
Or Mike
Galelli.
Oh, what's that? Who's he?
He
That's
was
not
a
what I was
film.
gonna
He was
say.
a guy that shot film in that era. But again, Bobby is the documentarian.
Yeah,
For
I'm
all
sure
that.
he's got it. I mean, there's footage of it in the documentary and everything.
Oh no, yeah.
Michael Moore is who I'm thinking of.
Yeah, that's the Michael Moore.
Not the documentary filmmaker.
No, I'm forgetting it. It's been what, 35 years or something, 30 some years.
More, something like that. Yeah.
But yeah, that's the beginning of it, and that's when I think that people were like, Don and Chuck and Mike. Mike was kind of out the door at that point, but Dave and Hunter, that was the night. Like, okay, this could be something, for the first time, and it did. Turned out to be something amazing. The most amazing thing, of course, being that nobody died.
Except Navi.
Uncle Navi died.
Uncle Navi died. Yeah.
Died every night.
Do you Here, I'll leave with this. I think we just about did it.
Mhm.
We could always do this again sometime.
Sure.
Do you have any? There's always, of course, stories about Death Piggy shows. You remember any crazy Death Piggy shows?
Well, I almost
With you
died.
or without you? Okay, yes,
Oh,
tell us that story.
the first the first show I played with Gwar was at Going Banana, or Death Piggy was at Going Bananas, which was a basement club in Shaco Slip, downtown Richmond, Virginia. And so uh, were thinking about beforehand. There was always a theatrical element with Death Piggy
Sure.
too. So we were like, okay, well, at the end of the show, we'll say, so do we keep Chris or we kill him? So of course it's going to be we kill Chris. So we were like, okay, we'll have a harness and we'll string you up and you pretend
I've
like
heard
you're
about
dead.
this.
And
Yeah.
pretend like you're dead. So Scott Crawl has it set to himself.
And
And
he's a tall motherfucker.
yeah, he's a good 6 inches taller
Yeah.
than me. So I put on the harness. We don't even try it out. We're just, that's how it was. Okay, so we play the show. Things are great. I'm thrilled, playing with Death Piggy, who was my favorite band. And so, of course, Dave's like, all right. So, what do you think of Chris? Should we keep him or should we kill him? And they were, of course, kill him. So they hook up the noose to the harness, and they start pulling me up. I immediately know that something is horribly wrong, and I'm literally choking to death. And Dave is just like going, kill him. And I'm literally like losing breath. It's probably the closest I've ever come to actual death. And I was starting to see stars, and I catch my brother's eye, and I just flash them a look like, if I die, you have to deal with our mother without me, by yourself. And he just runs up and grabs me and lifts me up so that it takes the weight off my neck. And then they let go of the rope and I fall down and hit the stage. But
wow,
I couldn't get out of bed for 2 days after that. I had like this huge rope burn underneath my neck. And of course, they show up the next day. Sorry, Chris. Oh, that was funny. So yeah, that was easily the closest I've come to death was, and it would have been with Dave yelling, kill him, looking me right in the eye. And
wow.
I remember saying, didn't you see like I was dying? And he was like, I wasn't paying attention to you.
Listen to the crowd.
Oh no, yeah, he always listens to the crowd.
And your brother, he did some art for some of your albums, right?
Oh, he did the covers for the first 2 SST albums, and my mother did the cover for the Friends of the Farm.
Oh, cool.
And then he did a bunch of show posters for us too.
I see Bopst shows still coming out once in a while. What else are you up to?
Well, I do the Bopst show. I usually put out a show every Monday, a couple hundred of those.
Where can we
So I
find
just
that?
do-
Is it streaming anywhere, or is it just on the
Yeah,
is it
I
on
mean,
the real radio? Where is it?
Well, it's on Real Radio, WRWK 93.9 LPFM. But I have it on Podomatic. Just look up the Bopst Show, and it's on every pretty much.
Do you have any?
Just type in the Bopst Show. It's on Podomatic. It's on Mixcloud, and all those.
Do you have
But
any
I'm
like
not playing
websites
music.
or social media that you
No.
want to promote?
Well, I'm on Facebook. I'm on Twitter. Tumblr even.
Tumblr, whoa.
Well, that was
Old
I
school.
still like it just for the
Porn.
there's a couple people that I followed for years,
Yeah.
that just post funny stuff that I go to. And it's just funny. It's like going to MySpace. It's like,
I
it's
know,
refreshing.
Tumblr, wow.
It's funny, But
That's great.
primarily I use, social media. I use Facebook and Twitter.
And you're saying you don't really play music anymore?
No, I haven't really felt that inspired to do anything, really. I mean, Christ, I'll be, crowding 60. It's like, oh God. I've listened to so much music. Like at this point, if you're playing bass, drum, and guitar, it's like, oh, I'm so disappointed.
What
like,
would you recommend?
I don't know. I book shows.
That's exactly what the alternatives was.
I booked shows for years, and then I came up with what I want. If I book it, the only shows I'll book is if none of the instruments that the band plays can be bought at Guitar Center. Like, so I figure I could probably do maybe 1 or 2 shows a year because at this point I'm like.
So what bands do you book? Do you have any bands you want to shout out that don't use any traditional instruments?
I haven't booked. I think my favorite band now, or for a while, and they're not that new, is Sleaford Mods. I love the Sleaford Mods. I like the new Paul Simonon record, from The Clash, called Galen and Paul. That's really good.
I didn't know he was still making records.
It's just kind of a one-off that he's done. And I listen to all different types of world music. A lot of times I like listening to music that doesn't have English speaking language to it, because I can think of it like a like a different type of melody. I just like anything that makes me kind of turn my head like the RCA dog. Like, what the fuck is that? And I've listened to so much rock music. It's just like, God damn. It's like, I keep waiting. I would think that we would evolve past it. Never would I have thought that, people would still be playing rock music.
Wow.
Well, you think about the 20th century, every 20 years, each generation defined itself distinctly different than the one preceding it artistically. And that's, through literature, through cinema, through music. Every 20 years, it was a whole new sound. You go from, the beginning of the century where, before blues, jazz, and country separate. Then you have, big band, then you have bebop, then you have rock and roll, then you have acid rock, then you have punk rock, then you have hip hop. Every 20 years, distinctly different. And then I feel lucky that, I felt like I was a witness and a participant to, kind of the 80s hardcore punk rock, and was able to see a bunch of early hip hop shows. But since then, it's like, there hasn't been like this kind of culture shifting sound. I think, what's changed in the culture is, the internet and social media, things like that. Like, people don't want to be rock stars so much as they want to be game designers, or it's kind of different these days where everyone's a TV channel. But the music is still pretty
like
much
this
the same.
right here.
I just hope that I should just come up with it and not wait for anybody else to do anything. But a band that rocks, that
don't talk about it, do it.
Right, exactly. But that's where my head's at these days. But yeah, Sleaford Mods are great. Love Sleaford Mods. Waited to see them for 10 years and finally saw them, and boy, are they good.
Nice.
Mm-hmm. And then, Jim Thompson's record label of Tropique is this Japanese group that he put out that I really like. So be sure to listen to Jim.
What should I ask him about? What's something I should ask Jim about that nobody else would tell me about?
Ask him if he feels like the pinnacle of his life is being in a band with me, Chris Bopst.
Which band?
I know. Well, the Alternatives, right?
Well, Gwar too.
I'm just the greatest person ever. Just ask him that.
I will for sure.
No, he's a good guy. Definitely check out his record label. It's Electric Cowbell. Great, world music type of, without that kind of sicko connotation. It's always got a kind of a funky vibe to it, but it's not grotesque or saccharine.
Mm-hmm.
And he put anything he puts out, he loves. So you got to
Nice.
respect that. And I'm always keep my ears open. And I might end up in Petersburg one day with a warehouse and
We're starting a
bunch of time,
band.
then starting a whole new band.
We just find instruments off the street and not at Guitar Center.
There you go.
Sweet. Well, this is awesome, man. Thank you so much for doing this.
Oh yeah, well, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Yeah, maybe we'll get you back sometime in the future.
Sure, in another 30 years.
Yeah, exactly. Well, maybe not that long, but Well, yeah, thanks everybody. The next show, well, I'm supposed to do one with somebody, but I'm not sure if it's been confirmed or not. So I'll tell you to tune in for Jim Thompson on June 28th for sure.
Oh, and you even spelled his name right. That's awesome.
Hey, I did
no
something
P.
right.
Jim Thompson, no P. Oh, and then you're having Gwar on?
And then I got Gwar on.
Oh, man. I am fundamentally opposed to tribute acts.
But
just
they're the
on
best
principle.
works.
But this is one tribute act I will get behind. Please express to them how much I love everything about what they do.
I definitely will. Hopefully they're watching this right now so they can hear you. If you're not watching Gwar, what are you doing? Hello, I'm the Gwar Show. I guess it'll be the GWARPod at that.
Oh no, yeah.
I gotta get Hunter to modify the logo for me.
Oh no, I'd love to see them. Oh my god.
And don't forget logo by Hunter Jackson. Just in case I didn't mention that enough times on this show.
Yes, Hunter Jackson. The man, the myth, the legend.
The original Scumdog Warrior. Well, awesome, man. Thank you so much.
Right.
Go check out the Bopst show. Go see Gwar on tour, maybe. Go get some fucking Gwar. I guess it's not beer, but it's an Arctic cocktail.
Just send
Gwar have cock in it, of course.
Just send Gwar your money. Just
send Gwar
that money you're spending on rent or for your health care for your ailing parents.
Yeah.
Don't do that. Send it to Gwar.
Or
send it to me, Chris.
Vote for the dicks.
Right.
Send Chris
as a founding member of Gwar, I need your money, not just some of it.
You want to put your Venmo out there, Venmo or PayPal? Just
put cash in a mailbox somewhere and just scribble Chris Bopst on it. It'll get to me.
There you go. Well, hopefully the fans, the Bohabs will send you riches.
The Bopst has.
Yeah, there you go.
All right, man.
I like that. The Bopst has. Yeah, there you go.
All right, have a good one.
You too. Everybody, like, share, subscribe. Help me fight the fucking algorithm.
Like, share, subscribe, comment below. Like, share, subscribe, comment below. Like, share, subscribe, comment below. Make me a sensation. It's karma for your soul. Like.
Hey, if you're still here, one last thing I forgot. I'll have to show this again, but I got an action figure made of me by John Poppy, who disappeared from Facebook, but you can still find him on Instagram. I gotta super glue this shoulder pad back on, but dude, Kevin the Dinosaur, the action figure, is now in my Gwar collection. Okay, bye.